Something unprecedented happened in the skies over Iran just before midnight on Wednesday, March 18, 2026, and the Pentagon is still investigating exactly how it occurred. A United States Air Force F-35 Lightning II stealth fighter, one of the most advanced and expensive combat aircraft ever built, was struck by what sources familiar with the incident describe as Iranian fire during a combat mission deep inside Iranian airspace. The aircraft made an emergency landing at an undisclosed American airbase somewhere in the Middle East. The pilot is safe. The jet, worth over $100 million and designed specifically to be invisible to enemy air defenses, is damaged. This is the first time since the war began on February 28 that Iran has successfully hit an American aircraft. Captain Tim Hawkins, spokesperson for United States Central Command, confirmed the emergency landing in a statement to CNN published 4 hours ago as of this writing, stating that the F-35 was flying a combat mission over Iran when the incident occurred. The incident is under investigation. That carefully worded acknowledgement from CENTCOM does not confirm hostile fire. It does not deny it either. What happened in those moments over Iran and what it reveals about the state of this war on day 20 requires precise examination. Subscribe to Pivot Analysis right now and turn on notifications. What is being documented here is developing in real time, and the operational picture emerging from the combat zone is diverging sharply from official assessments. The Pentagon has repeatedly stated that Iranian air defenses have been flattened. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said exactly that in a briefing Thursday morning, just hours before news of the F-35 incident became public. The gap between that narrative and what actually happened Wednesday night demands the kind of analysis that connects documented facts rather than simply transmitting the official version. Before going further, it is necessary to establish clearly what is confirmed, what is contested, and what remains unknown. The United States and Israel have been conducting Operation Epic Fury, a massive coordinated air campaign against Iran, since the opening strikes on February 28 that killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. According to Al Jazeera's comprehensive tracking published 9 hours ago, nearly 2,000 distinct strike events have been documented across at least 29 of Iran's 31 provinces. U.S. Central Command states that American forces have struck more than 7,000 targets. American aviators have flown more than 6,000 combat flights. Both the United States and Israel operate F-35 aircraft in this conflict. Israel flies the F-35 Ayadir variant. The United States deploys the standard F-35A from Air Force squadrons. Until Wednesday night, neither country had lost an F-35 to enemy action in this war. The aircraft that landed Wednesday night changes that calculation. What is confirmed? A U.S. Air Force F-35 conducted an emergency landing at a regional U.S. airbase after flying a combat mission over Iran. The incident occurred just before midnight, Wednesday, March 18, 2026. The pilot is in stable condition. The aircraft landed safely. Captain Tim Hawkins of CENTCOM confirmed these facts to multiple news organizations, including CNN, Military Times, and The War Zone, all of which published reports between 2 and 6 hours ago. The incident is under investigation. What is contested? Whether the aircraft was actually struck by Iranian fire, CENTCOM has not officially confirmed hostile fire as the cause. Two sources familiar with the matter told CNN in a report published 4 minutes ago at the time of this analysis that the F-35 is believed to have been struck by Iranian fire. The War Zone, a defense publication with extensive military aviation expertise, published an analysis 4 hours ago noting that while sources suggest Iranian fire, the circumstances remain unclear and friendly fire cannot be ruled out. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps released video footage through the Fars news agency claiming responsibility for the strike. The video, whose authenticity cannot be independently verified, appears to show a surface-to-air missile hitting an aircraft on what the IRGC describes as the port side. What remains unknown? The exact weapon system that struck the aircraft, the extent of the damage, whether the jet will return to service, the specific location inside Iran where the incident occurred, how Iran's air defenses, which according to official assessments have been systematically destroyed, managed to target and hit a fifth-generation stealth aircraft specifically designed to evade radar detection. The tactical data from Wednesday night requires precise examination because what Iran appears to have executed was not a lucky shot. The F-35 Lightning II is not a conventional fighter aircraft that can be tracked and engaged using Cold War-era systems. The jet's fundamental design principle is low observability. Its shape, materials, and electronic systems are engineered to minimize radar cross-section. When an F-35 penetrates contested airspace, enemy radar operators are not supposed to see it until it is too late. The aircraft costs between $80 and $110 million depending on the variant, and a significant portion of that cost funds the stealth technology that makes it nearly undetectable. To understand why defense planners and military analysts are treating this incident with the seriousness they are, the operational implications matter. If Iran retains the capability to detect, track, and successfully engage stealth aircraft after nearly 3 weeks of sustained bombardment designed specifically to eliminate that capability, then fundamental assumptions about air superiority in this conflict require reassessment. The IRGC statement, reported by Palestine Chronicle 5 hours ago, framed the incident within what it called evolving Iranian air defense capabilities. According to that statement, after the successful downing of more than 125 American and Israeli drones by Iranian air defense systems, this successful interception indicates the existence of effective and directed changes in the country's integrated air defense systems. That is not the language of desperation. That is the language of adaptation. The question every analyst watching this situation is now wrestling with is what kind of systems successfully engage that F-35. Iran operates a mixture of air defense platforms. Some are Russian-designed systems, like the S-300. Others are domestically produced variants based on reverse-engineered foreign technology. The country has invested heavily in what are called electro-optical and infrared surface-to-air missile systems. These systems do not rely on radar. They use visual and heat signatures to track targets. Tyler Rogoway, editor of The War Zone and one of the most knowledgeable defense analysts covering this conflict, wrote on March 5th that Iran possesses road-mobile air defenses that can hide and pop up virtually anywhere, and that the country has exotic systems like loitering SAMs. He noted that moving fighters in for direct attacks does not mean they can operate freely without threat, especially when facing road-mobile air defenses and exotic types that can appear anywhere and give air crews very little time to react. Electro-optical and infrared surface-to-air missile systems are especially concerning, Rogoway noted, because U.S. fourth-generation fighter aircraft would have no idea they were being attacked until struck unless they visibly see the missile launch heading their way. The F-35 has more advanced sensor systems than fourth-generation jets, but if Iran deployed an infrared-guided system against the aircraft Wednesday night, the engagement timeline could have been extremely compressed. The pilot might have had seconds to react. Set against that tactical backdrop, Wednesday's incident must be understood within the broader operational context of Day 20. Just hours before the F-35 made its emergency landing, Israel executed what Netanyahu himself described Thursday as a unilateral strike on Iran's South Pars gas field, the largest natural gas field in the world. According to reports from Al Jazeera published 38 minutes ago, CNN published 4 minutes ago, and NPR published 12 minutes ago, Israeli forces struck 4 sites at the Asaluye gas facilities in Iran's Bushehr province on Wednesday. The target was only partially hit, according to Israeli military assessments reported by Alma Research Center in an analysis published 1 day ago, but the strike disabled most of Iran's gas production and halted the flow of gas from Iran to Iraq. South Pars is not just an Iranian asset, it is a shared underwater gas field with Qatar. The field sits beneath the Persian Gulf with reserves on both the Iranian and Qatari sides. Netanyahu stated Thursday in remarks reported by CNN that Israel acted alone against the Asaluye gas compound and that President Trump asked Israel to hold off on future attacks. Netanyahu said he agreed. Trump issued his own statement on Truth Social, claiming the United States knew nothing about the particular attack and warning that if Iran continues attacking Qatar's energy infrastructure, the United States will massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field. Here is where the official narrative fractures against the documented record. Two separate sources contradicted Trump's claim that the United States had no knowledge of the South Pars strike. An Israeli source told CNN, in reporting published 4 minutes ago, that Israel carried out the attack in coordination with the United States. An American source told CNN that the U.S. had been aware of the strike. The gap between Trump's public statement and what sources with knowledge of the operation are telling journalists creates a credibility problem that extends beyond this single incident. If the United States coordinated or had advanced knowledge of a strike that Trump publicly claims complete ignorance about, then official communications regarding operational decision-making in this war cannot be taken at face value. If Israel genuinely acted without American knowledge or approval, then the coordination between the two countries prosecuting this joint campaign has broken down at a moment when escalation dynamics are accelerating beyond anyone's control. Iran's response to the South Pars strike came within hours, and it came in a form that has killed civilians in their homes. Beginning late Wednesday night and continuing into Thursday morning, Iran launched multiple waves of ballistic missile attacks on Israel using weapons that carried cluster bomb warheads. The Times of Israel, in reporting published 1 day ago, 20 hours ago, and 9 hours ago across multiple updates, documented the sequence of attacks and their devastating results. Yaron and Ilana Moshe, a couple in their 70s, were killed early Wednesday morning in their apartment in Ramat Gan, a suburb just outside Tel Aviv, when a cluster munition struck their building. Emergency responders found them in their living room. According to neighbors interviewed by Israeli media, the building was hit moments after warning sirens sounded. Yaron Moshe was disabled. The couple had not reached their safe room in time. The missile that killed them carried a cluster bomb warhead. Footage reviewed by the Times of Israel shows the weapon breaking apart in mid-air over central Israel, scattering dozens of submunitions across a radius that Israeli military officials estimate at approximately 10 kilometers. Each submunition carries several kilograms of explosives. Even when Israel's air defense systems successfully intercept the incoming ballistic missile, the cluster submunitions can still rain down over a wide area. A foreign worker, identified as a 30-year-old Thai national, was killed hours later at Moshav Adanim in central Israel by shrapnel from another cluster bomb. Magen David Adam, Israel's emergency medical service, reported that the man sustained critical injuries to his head and was declared dead at the scene. 4 Palestinian women were killed in Beit Awa in the southern West Bank when cluster munitions struck the village. The Palestinian Red Crescent reported preliminary casualties that were later adjusted to at least 3 killed and at least 13 injured. In Petah Tikva, a 44-year-old man and 2 children aged 12 and 13 were lightly wounded by shrapnel. A residential building in Tel Aviv sustained extensive damage that will likely require demolition, according to reporting from Channel 12 News. The building housed dozens of people. Damage to Israel's Bazan oil refinery in Haifa was confirmed Thursday afternoon after shrapnel from intercepted missiles struck the facility during consecutive Iranian barrages. The Jerusalem Post, in reporting published 2 hours ago, stated that no injuries occurred at the refinery, and the Environmental Protection Ministry confirmed no leakage of hazardous substances, but the Energy Minister acknowledged localized damage to the electrical grid in northern Israel. The use of cluster munitions in populated areas violates international humanitarian law under the 2008 Convention on Cluster Munitions, which bans the use, production, stockpiling, and transfer of these weapons. Neither Iran, Israel, nor the United States are signatories to that convention. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps acknowledged firing cluster munitions and stated, according to Iranian state media cited by the Times of Israel, that their use was intended to avenge Israel's killing of Iranian security chief Ali Larijani earlier this week. Iran fired at least 4 types of medium-range ballistic missiles at the Tel Aviv area in the attack, according to state-linked media reported by Newsweek in an article published 1 day ago. The IRGC claimed it struck more than 100 military and security targets. Israeli Defense Forces assessments indicate that approximately 50% of the ballistic missiles Iran has fired at Israel during this war have carried cluster bomb warheads. Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani, speaking at the Ramat Gan impact site, told reporters that a cluster warhead can cover a city with small bombs. Israel recorded 6 separate siren activations overnight between midnight and 8 a.m. Thursday morning as Iranian barrages continued. According to Al Jazeera's comprehensive tracking of the conflict published 8 hours ago, Iran has launched a total of 268 attack waves against Israel since the war began. The central region, particularly the Tel Aviv metropolitan area, has absorbed 39.2% of all attacks. To be fair, there is a counter-argument to the assessment that Iran's air defenses remain operationally effective, and it deserves serious consideration. Defense officials speaking to multiple outlets have emphasized that the United States and Israel have conducted thousands of strikes across Iran with minimal aircraft losses. 3 U.S. Air Force F-15E Strike Eagles were lost on March 1st, but those losses resulted from friendly fire when a Kuwaiti F-A-18 mistakenly engaged the American aircraft. All 6 crew members ejected safely. A KC-135 Stratotanker crashed in western Iraq on March 12th, killing 6 airmen, but CENTCOM has stated that crash did not involve hostile or friendly fire. If Wednesday's F-35 incident is confirmed as the result of Iranian air defenses, it would represent the first and only successful engagement of a manned American combat aircraft by enemy fire in nearly 3 weeks of intensive operations. That record, the argument goes, demonstrates overwhelming American and Israeli air superiority despite isolated incidents. The counterargument continues that road mobile air defense systems, by their very nature, cannot be completely eliminated through airstrikes. Some systems will survive, some will remain hidden. The occasional successful engagement does not negate the broader destruction of Iran's integrated air defense network. Those are serious arguments grounded in the operational realities of modern air campaigns. No air force in history has achieved perfect invulnerability over hostile territory. But here is where the counterargument runs into the evidence. The F-35 is not a routine combat aircraft. It is specifically designed to operate in exactly the kind of contested environment that Iran presents. The jet's mission profile assumes that enemy air defenses exist and that the aircraft must penetrate them undetected. If a stealth platform specifically engineered for that mission is being successfully engaged, then either the technology is not performing as designed or the threat is more sophisticated than official assessments acknowledge. The IRGC's statement about evolving and directed changes to integrated air defense systems suggests adaptation, not merely survival. The deployment of cluster munitions against Israeli cities indicates a deliberate tactical choice to maximize casualties and infrastructure damage in retaliation for the South Pars strike. That is not the behavior of a military in collapse. That is the behavior of a force calibrating its response to inflict maximum pain in reply to what it perceives as escalatory attacks on critical national infrastructure. Here is what to watch in the days ahead. The investigation into the F-35 incident will determine whether the aircraft was struck by hostile fire, and if so, what weapon system was responsible. That finding will shape operational planning for every subsequent mission over Iran. If the Pentagon concludes that Iranian air defenses successfully engaged the jet, expect changes to flight profiles, increased electronic warfare support, and potentially a pause in deep penetration missions until the threat is better understood. Watch for any statements from Iran regarding additional air defense capabilities. The IRGC has demonstrated a pattern of releasing information about successful strikes to shape domestic morale and international perceptions. If they possess evidence of additional hits or near misses on coalition aircraft, that information will emerge. Watch the casualty figures from cluster munition attacks. Israel's Home Front Command has emphasized that submunitions carrying a few kilograms of explosives are unlikely to harm people if they are sheltering properly, but the deaths in Ramat Gan demonstrate that warning time remains insufficient for vulnerable populations. If Iran continues deploying cluster warheads, Israeli civilian casualties will rise, and domestic political pressure on Netanyahu to either escalate dramatically or pursue a ceasefire will intensify. Here is the full picture of where things stand on day 20. Confirmed. A U.S. Air Force F-35 made an emergency landing after a combat mission over Iran. The pilot is safe. Sources believe the aircraft was struck by Iranian fire. The incident is under investigation. Israel struck Iran's South Pars gas field on Wednesday, disabling most Iranian gas production. The United States claims no advance knowledge. Sources contradict that claim. Iran retaliated with cluster bomb attacks on Israeli cities, killing at least 7 people, including an elderly couple in Ramat Gan and a foreign worker at Moshav Adonam. The IRGC stated the attacks were revenge for Israel's killing of security chief Ali Larijani. Not yet confirmed the exact weapon system that hit the F-35, whether the damage will allow the aircraft to return to service, whether the United States genuinely had no knowledge of the South Pars strike, or whether Trump's statement represents a political distancing maneuver, whether Iran possesses additional air defense capabilities that have not yet been employed, how many cluster munitions Iran retains in its arsenal. Professional consensus. The F-35 incident represents the first successful Iranian engagement of an American aircraft in this war. The deployment of cluster munitions against population centers marks a tactical escalation in Iranian retaliation. The South Pars strike crossed a threshold by targeting energy production infrastructure rather than military sites. The gap between official assessments of Iranian capabilities and observable battlefield outcomes is widening. Subscribe to Pivot Analysis and turn on notifications. This channel exists to read the operational data, examine the tactical evidence, and connect the elements that official briefings are keeping separate. When the F-35 investigation concludes, when the next Iranian retaliation unfolds, when the next escalation threshold is crossed, the analysis will be here. Evidence first, analysis second. Always. Leave one question in the comments. Do you believe current coalition air defenses and stealth technology can maintain superiority if Iran's systems are adapting rather than simply surviving? Every response gets read.